They might not do that here immediately off the bat, but that's the goal right here in the early going. Looks like GreenCleric is taking a chance to shop here, while Taralyn's going to opt to shop later. Oh, okay. Okay, so they both just did a quick menuing section in Cornelia, and then they talked to the nearest guard at the exit of Cornelia, which gets them escorted to the king here. The king gives us our first quest to go rescue the princess who's been kidnapped by Garland, and they're off. They're basically straight off to the Chaos Shrine where Garland's holding her, and along the way, the high power of the knight's armor that they put on their characters basically gives them enough defense early on that almost any enemy attack against them is going to do minimal damage right now. So they don't have they aren't in any real danger from any of these enemy encounters that are here. The only danger is wasting time, which they're trying to avoid as much as possible, and is the basic goal of this speedrun, is to try to avoid wasting as much time as possible in combat. So the first thing they're going to do, once they get to the Chaos Shrine here, we see Taralyn taking an early lead just because she's gotten considerably better RNG along the path over to the Chaos Shrine. We go into the Chaos Shrine, detour into the little southwest room, and pick up a leather cap. This is to perform another equipment glitch right here. In this case, Taralyn's going to be turning this leather cap into a weapon known as the Judgment Staff. It is an extremely powerful piece of gear that is primarily from only the bonus content that's available in this version of the game, and she's going to turn it into one of those and put it on each of the 4 characters. It has more attack power than any of the weapons we have available to us early on, and as a bonus, we can use it in combat to cast Flare right off the bat. So that gives us an easy way to deal with large groups of enemies that might be stubborn to run away from or otherwise unrunnable. And once we have that, we just go straight up to confront Garland. So we can see the princess right behind him. GreenCleric is working his way over there while Taralyn's in there. Garland is a chump in this version with this glitch, so Taralyn's just going to take 4 hits and take him down instantly. GreenCleric, on the other hand, is just trying to get away from these wolves. These wolves have a bit of a high agility, so they have a higher chance to attack earlier in the turn order, and they can be somewhat problematic to run away from, since our characters don't have a lot of agility to help us run away from enemy encounters this early in the run. So GreenCleric is just going to do the exact same thing over here, and it's only going to take him 3 attacks instead of 4. Taralyn has rescued the princess, so once we've rescued the princess, there's a quick interlude where she takes us back to the castle. And Taralyn actually made a slight mistake there. She tried to run away from this little throne room without talking to the princess. That triggers a little bit of a cutscene. If you actually talk directly to the princess, you can skip that little cutscene and save a few seconds. But once she's all done with that and we walk out of the castle, as a reward for rescuing her, the king agrees to build this bridge over here, so we're in a short cutscene where Taralyn just basically gets to watch these workers build it. This bottommost worker is only working half as hard as the rest for whatever reason. It's just kind of slacking. Cleric is now in the same cutscene here. So to briefly explain the equipment glitch in this version, I'll do my best here. It can be a little complicated to explain this. So every piece of equipment in the game, either any weapon or any armor, is considered to be, it has an item ID and it's associated with either a weapons table or an armor table. If we turn on the memory cursor, which helps us remember the position of the cursor in many menus, including in combat, in the equipment menu, in the item menu, things like that. If you go into the equipment menu and line up 2 characters that are adjacent to each other, and then any of the slots between them, you can basically use left or right to scroll between them at the same time that you press X to load the IDs of the equipment that they are able to equip in the one slot on the first character. And if you line it up with the slot on the other character, it actually loads the IDs for the equipment on the second character's equipment slot that you pick. So if you line up, let's say, a weapon on your warrior, and you scroll over, and then you line up an armor slot on a second character like your thief, who's right adjacent to him in the party order, and then you scroll over at the same time that you open the list of equipment that's available for that weapon slot for the warrior. It tricks the game into loading the IDs of the armor, of the entries in the armor table instead of the weapon table. So by utilizing this in a couple different ways, they can basically create overpowered gear that is available in this version of the game that was added as bonus content, and can basically duplicate it out of nowhere. And in some cases, it can be very, very valuable equipment, so they can actually sell it for free gold right off the bat. In this little section after the castle, Taralyn walked over to this next town, Provoca. Has a problem with pirates that are harassing the citizens. So we walk up to the main pirate and trigger this battle where they try to harass us as well. It triggers a battle with 9 pirates here. Using the judgment staff we glitched earlier, we can quickly and easily take care of this group rather than manually attacking them one at a time over 3 rounds of combat. So Taralyn's all set here with that, and she's has a slight lead. Since she didn't shop in Cornelia, she's actually opting to shop here in Provoca. The advantage of doing that is you can pick up potions, antidotes, and phoenix downs, but you can also pick up ethers here in town. And they're actually doing a slight route divergence here. GreenCleric is opting not to shop here because he shopped in Cornelia, but he went into the armor shop to pick up a leather shield for another glitch. So they're going to be on a slight route divergence here. There's 3 primary routes that many of our runners are using in this tournament. There's an older route from prior tournaments where we give all of our characters an extremely overpowered weapon called the Barbarian Sword, and we just use that to deal with enemies that we just want to melee attack. And then we use the Judgment Staff for any groups that are unrunnable or just larger and otherwise stubborn to run from. And there is a slightly newer route, which both of these players, I believe, are going to be using, utilizing a piece of equipment known as the Lust Dagger. It's a weapon we'll be getting about 35 to 40 minutes into the run, and putting on our mages. We'll be stacking agility and intelligence on the mages so that they can quickly act in combat and deal with large groups of enemies. The slight variance here is that Taralyn will be using a route which relies on using spells on the Black Mage, and GreenCleric will be using a slightly different route which relies on using item equipment that we glitch, and then using the White Mage to clear out these groups instead. So they're roughly equivalent routes. They're honestly just primary runner's preference at this point. Neither has been proven to be particularly faster or more effective than the other route. They just each have their own pros and cons. So once you're all set here, Taralyn heads over here to the Marsh Cave, which contains the next key item we need in the early going plot. On the 3rd basement floor here, the crown is stored in a treasure chest in one of these rooms. We don't need any other attacks, or we don't need any other experience or anything else in this dungeon, so we just beeline straight to this room on the floor. Cleric's on the overworld trying to make his way over to the Marsh Cave, and Taralyn has reached the crown. As soon as she steps on the tile right in front of it, she gets an encounter with these Pisco Demons. Anywhere from 2 to 4 can spawn for this encounter, and they can still do quite a lot of damage to us with their melee attacks, in spite of the fact that we have a lot of defense from the other thing. So, Cleric getting a little unlucky with so many encounters in the early going, and he also gets poisoned by these scorpions here. Poison's not particularly dangerous by itself here, but any character that's poisoned takes takes damage at the end of a combat round, which incurs a little bit of an animation, which is a slight time loss, as well as if they are walking in a dungeon or an overworld, that poison character will take 1 point of damage for every tile they step on. We can actually take advantage of that in a couple unique situations, but we don't want that right now. Cleric's still getting poor encounters. Terra, meanwhile, is all set with a Marsh Cave, and it's all the way back out before Cleric gets in, which is giving her a pretty good lead in the early going here. But this is a roughly hour and a half to an hour 40 run, depending on the RNG that the players get and the execution that they make during their run. So no lead that Terra has at this point can be considered safe, because there are plenty of opportunities for GreenCleric to get better RNG and flip this around quickly. So Terra, meanwhile, is making her way up to the Western Keep, and Cleric is fighting his way through the marsh. He got poisoned again. So this is a little unfortunate for him, but he's just healing it up and then proceeding to the Crown Room. And then we can easily take down this group of Pisca Demons with the Judgment Staff we had earlier, as Flare does enough damage to take them out with any of our characters. I believe they only have 82 HP in this fight, so that's nothing we can't handle with the Judgment Staff. Taralyn has made her way with the crown over here to Western Keep, where she actually returns it to the Elf King, except it's not really the Elf King, it's the Dark Elf Astos that was posing as the Elf King. What a trickster. So, as soon as he reveals himself, he attacks us. The quickest way usually to deal with this is to have the two melee characters, the Thief and the Warrior, attack him with the staff and have the mages use the staff in combat. The goal is to try to do 420 damage to him, preferably in one round. If the melee characters can land about 80 damage worth of attacks, then the Black Mage and White Mage, when using the staff, can do more than enough with their attacks to kill him. So Taralyn gets him down in one round with no problems here. Cleric has made his way out of the Marsh Cave and is working his way up there to the Western Keep. Unfortunately for Terra, or actually possibly even fortunately for Terra, her warrior was actually killed in combat by the one attack we're hoping to avoid from, or actually her thief was. So, disadvantage of that is the thief doesn't get any experience from combat since he was dead at the end of it, but the other advantage is that her mages and her warrior got some additional experience because they got the share that the thief normally would have received in combat if all four of them had survived. In general, we don't want to see Astos use death if possible, because he can also physically attack, and it takes less time for him to do that, less time for him to animate that than it does for him to cast death. And also, if he happens to cast death on one of our mages, we're trying to gain some experience on them over the early course of the run, so that they can be a certain level by about the halfway point of the run. So, Cleric setting up here for the fight, while Taralyn's making her way, now that she has the Crystal Eye that you get from defeating Astos. So he stole it from the Witch Matoya, and we have to return it to her. So to do that, we have to walk back and go get back on our boat that we got from defeating the pirates and head up to her cave, which is up and beyond where we started the game. Cleric gets Astos down without losing anybody in combat, so that's pretty good for him. Saves him some healing and resurrecting. Taralyn's just trying to get away from these wolves here. In general, we don't need any experience from any of these fights, so the quickest way to deal with any fight in this early going is just to run away. Enemies can be stubborn and refuse to let us run away here. Here's a slight the route divergence here for Taralyn. She's ducked into Elfheim over here and picked up Fyra and Thundara, so she can use them in combat against groups of enemies that might be vulnerable to fire or thunder, including sea encounters, which are notoriously annoying in the early going of the run. And then she also detours into the item shop to pick up gold needles, which is a safety item for races. It's possible to complete a run without picking up gold needles, but it is not recommended for races, as if any character gets petrified, that can really just throw everything off for you. And it's just not worth skipping them, because it takes only about 15 seconds to detour into the town and pick them up. and less so if you're additionally shopping like she was. So Cleric is going past Elfheim here. He opted not to shop because he's going to be using items to deal with glitched items that we pick up over the course of the run to deal with larger groups of enemies rather than the spells that Taralyn's using. So Taralyn also picked up Ethers earlier so that she can utilize the spells, but I think it looks like she did not actually use any Ethers at this point. Actually, I'm sorry, I'm looking at Cleric's screen. Cleric did not pick up Ethers yet. He'll be picking them up later because he does not need them in the early going. Taralyn did actually potion up her, looks like her Black Mage, so that he can use the Fire and Thundara spells she picked up. Taralyn's made her way to Matoya's cave here, so a brief cutscene plays out while she laments her situation, not realizing we're standing right there with the crystal. So she just wastes 15 to 20 seconds of our time explaining her situation that we already know about, as we've played this game before. So Taralyn's all set. She traded Crystal Io to Matoya, and now she's got the Jolt Tonic. Astos also cast a spell on the Elf Prince in the Elven Castle next to Elfheim, and so he's in a cursed sleep right now. The Jolt Tonic will actually wake him up, but we have to take it over to him once we pick it up. Cleric looks to have made up a little bit of time getting to Matoya's cave compared to Taralyn at this point. So Taralyn is actually getting fortunate here. She got a preemptive against this Sahagin group. The advantage of a preemptive attack is your characters get a free round of combat, or they can try to run, and the first attempt to run will be successful. Since running is usually the easiest way to deal with enemies, that is by far the best situation you want to experience in a race here. Taralyn, meanwhile, is getting now an ambush over here, which means every enemy gets an attack on the first round of combat before we get to enter any commands. So larger groups of enemies in ambush will cost more time, and some particular enemies can be very dangerous if they happen to ambush us. Taralyn's made her way over to the Elven Castle and talked to this little healer next to the bed, who will take the Jolt Tonic and give it to the prince, wake him up. Cleric just seconds behind her at this point, so they're almost even, and we're rewarded for waking the prince with this Mystic Key, which is a significant key item we're going to need at this point. So the first thing we're going to do with the key is open a treasure room in the back of the Elven Castle. The quickest way to actually reach it is to exit the castle and then re-enter, as it's a shorter path than actually running around the whole castle. And we get in there and pick up a Mithril Hammer from one chest, and in Tara's case, she's going to pick up a Bronze Gloves. It's going to be for two different items that she's glitching. Cleric's only going to be picking up the Mithril Hammer here. So both of them are going to be turning the Mithril Hammer into this piece of armor called the Thief's Armlet, and they're going to be putting 3 copies on each of their characters. The Thief's Armlet has more defense, more accuracy, and more evasion capability than the Knight's Armor we did earlier. And additionally, it adds 5 points of agility. Agility influences the character turn order, and is also a factor in determining run odds for certain encounters. Taralyn's having a little trouble with this menu right here, but Cleric actually passed her on the menu here. So once you put it on each of the characters, each of them has an additional 15 points of agility, which greatly increases their chances to run and act earlier in combat. And then Tara also turned the Bronze Gloves into a weapon called the Sage's Staff, which gives an intelligence bonus, so that will increase the chances that the Black Mage can use its spells and guarantee that it kills enemies using the spells that she picked up. And now that they have the extra 15 agility, they have a significantly easier time running from many of these sea encounters. So Cleric, once we have the Mithril Knife and everything in Elven Castle, we head over here to Cornelia and use the Mystic Key to get into 2 treasure chests that are in the back of the castle here that were previously locked. Taralyn's only going to be picking up one of these chests, which is the Nitro Powder key item. Cleric picked up an additional one from the other treasure room, a mithril knife, which will glitch into a piece of an armor known as the Black Robe, and he'll use that against enemies that are weak to ice. Tara will instead be picking up Blizzara, but that will be much later in the run to do the same thing. So once they all have that, they head over to Mount Dwarger with the nitro powder they picked up, because they need to blow open a little bit of a dam that is landlocking them in the early going. Cleric has reached it with very few encounters, so he's actually opened a bit of a lead here. Tara's trying to run away from the Sahagin group. Since she failed, she also queued up a Thundara command on her Black Mage to be able to kill them, just to guarantee that the combat ends in one round, which is a smart move for a race. In a PB attempt, you might just want to try to run away, but in a race, you want to try to minimize the amount of time you're in combat, especially because multiple rounds of combat can waste a lot of time. So Cleric has handed the nitro powder over to this dwarf named Narek in the bottom of Mount Dwarger here, and this triggers a brief cutscene where we see them using the nitro powder to blow open a little passageway that we can sail through. Cleric's all set here, so he's going to head back out. We don't need anything else from in here in the Mount. There's a treasure room that needs the Mystic Key to open up. I think actually all the treasure rooms need the Mystic Key, but none of the equipment or items in here are necessary for us. So Cleric's next goal is to head through the passage he opened and make his way to Melmond for one last equipment glitch before we head over to the Earth Cave. So Cleric goes over here. You'll notice he has to land the boat at certain spots in order to be able to disembark from his ship here. You can't disembark anywhere you want to. You must do it at these specific dock tiles or at the mouth of a river. If you have the canoe, you can land right next to it. So Cleric is actually performing. He picked up a steel gloves from the weapon shop here, or I'm sorry, from the armor shop, and he's turning that into a weapon called the Barbarian Sword, which is the most powerful weapon in this version of the game, normally only obtained from the super boss in the PSP exclusive bonus dungeon known as the Labyrinth of Time in this version. So he's turning it into two swords, and he's putting it on his two melee characters to give them a huge attack boost, so they're capable of pretty much one-shotting almost any enemy in the game except for the bosses throughout the game. And then Cleric is making his way now over to the Cavern of Earth for the first trip there. There's going to be two trips we're going to have to take there. Tara, meanwhile, is trying to make her way over through the passageway we blew open to get into Melmond to do the same menu. Cleric getting a preemptive here against these shadow enemies. If you happen to run into them, you're always either going to get a preemptive or an ambush against shadows. Luckily, the balance of that is largely in favor of preemptives. Cleric will just be running away from everything on the first two basement floors here. On the third floor, he will start to run into some dangerous enemies here. Tara's finally utilizing the Sage's Staff and the Barbarian Sword. So Tara has Barbarian Swords on her two melee characters, and she's got Sage's Staff on her two other characters, which gives them an intelligence boost. So Tara's advantage with her setup here is that if she happens to run into Pisco Demons in Earth Cave, she'll be able to take them out using Thundara due to the higher intelligence boost that she has, whereas Cleric will be forced to use either melee attacks or Judgment Staff only to deal with them. Cleric's going to take a safety save here at the start of the third basement floor, just in case we happen to run into some nasty encounters. Tara's going to make her way over to the cave now. So she's in, and she's just 2 floors behind right now. The 3rd floor is the longest of the 3 floors, by far. Cleric's getting a pretty good run here, without many of the enemies where he's dodged all the enemies we don't want to see at this point, which is good for him. And he's going to get into a fighter. He's into this mini-boss fight with the vampire. The vampire can use this little gaze attack, so the easiest way to deal with him is just to queue up 2 attacks with your melee characters, and either one, if they land a hit, will kill him instantly with the power of the barbarian sword, since it is roughly 2 to 3 times the power of Excalibur from the original version of the game. Once we've killed him, the Star Ruby is lying in wait in this chest here right next to him, and we need that in order to progress to the next area. Taralyn getting... they're both getting Pisco Demons here, so here we're going to see the difference in their strategies here. Cleric's going to have to use the Judgment Stab, which has a roughly 8-second animation to cast. And Taralyn's going to use Thundara here, which has roughly 2-second cast time. So that lets her save about 6 seconds of animation time in dealing with the enemies here. In general, we don't want to run into Pisco Demons as they're an unrunnable encounter in this area. And there's no indication that you don't receive any feedback from the game if you happen to run into an unrunnable encounter. You can just continue to try to run from them forever, but you will never succeed in actually running from them. Taralyn getting some ochre jellies, which are a bit of a rare occurrence here. Trying to run away from this group, but this is a large number of enemies that ambushed her, which is unfortunate. Wasted a bunch of time in combat while she's trying to make her way to the vampire. Cleric is all set here on the 3rd floor, just needs to get off of it without getting too many bad encounters, but he got 2 groups of Pisco Demons, which slowed him down a bit. Taralyn taking down the vampire with no problem here. So Cleric, he's all set here, just has to walk back out the way he came in. Getting another ambush here, which is a little unfortunate. But luckily for him, it's only 2 enemies, so it's not a huge time loss. But he did get poisoned, which necessitates a couple seconds of menuing while he messes around and gets rid of that, because he doesn't want that on his characters right now. In general, they won't be healing their characters early on unless their characters happen to get into a little bit of a dangerous territory, like under 20 HP or something. And in general, we won't be healing our melee characters at this point unless they happen to get that, because we're trying to facilitate them losing HP to a certain point such that they can be killed off for an experience grind after the Cavern of Earth is all set. So Tara's on the 2nd basement floor making her way out. Cleric has just exited and is going to be on his way over to the Giant's Cave. There's a giant blocking our path over there, and the Star Ruby will hand it over to him and he'll get out of our way so that we can get over to the Sage's Cave that's beyond it and pick up a key item called the Earth Rod, which we need to get to the lower basement floors of the Cavern of Earth. So due to how the game plot is set up, we basically have to make 2 trips into the Cavern of Earth. There's no way to skip that. So Cleric has made it to the Giant over here. Giant takes a few seconds after and actually Taralyn made up some time here. They're both almost probably within 10 seconds of each other right now. So what we like to see is a nice close race here. These runners are roughly evenly matched in terms of skill and ability. Their PBs are only about 1.5 minutes apart. I think Taralyn has a slightly better PB of 132. Cleric's PB, I believe, is 134. But roughly speaking, their PBs being that close means almost nothing in a race setting. The RNG can significantly swing for one player or the other, or just keep them both very, very close to each other for most of the run here. So Cleric is the first one to reach the Sage's Cave, and now that we've defeated the vampire, Sada will reward us with the Earth Rod, which we need to get to the 4th and 5th basement floors of the Earth Cave. If we had tried to proceed there earlier, there was a stone slab that was blocking our path. So the Earth Rod will help us remove that, open up a staircase that will let us get to the bottom floors. So Terra's just behind Cleric. Cleric's getting a bunch of encounters here on this little section to go back. The only way to back at this point is to walk back to the Giant's Cave, walk back through it, and walk back over to the Earth Cave. So there's quite a lot of backtracking in these early sections, especially in this particular section, while they work their way to get to the Lich. Taralyn getting a preemptive against wolves. Since it's a larger group, it's a good preemptive to see at this point. And if you are watching carefully, you might notice that they're trying to walk on, or trying to avoid walking on forest tiles where possible. Every tile you take a step on the overworld or in a dungeon raises a threat level that increases the chances you'll get into combat on the next tile. And in general, the threat goes up higher on forest tiles compared to other ones. So they're trying to avoid that where possible. All it does is raise the odds, though. It doesn't necessarily guarantee they're going to get more encounters. But it just lowers the chances they will. So here on the 2nd basement floor, they're both trying to just get into and out of encounters as quickly as possible here. Cleric is the first one to reach the 3rd basement floor, and again takes a quick safety save, just in case of a really, really nasty encounter here. One of the bonuses of this particular version of the game is, among the many quality of life features, we have the ability to save anywhere. So safety saving is highly recommended at a couple key points of the run, as it only takes a handful of seconds to save and can save you potentially minutes of backtracking if you get into an undesired encounter, or if certain enemy groups ambush you or something of that nature. Both of them have gotten Pisco Demons on this return trip. Cleric had to use his Judgment Staff again. Taralyn again using Thundara, since she has it, and has enough intelligence on her characters. She's using Thundara because they are actually, the Pisco Demons are resistant to fire and ice spells, but they're not resistant to thunder, so thunder actually will do full damage to them. This is a group that Taralyn didn't really want to see here. This is a Cockatrice group. It's a runnable encounter, but Cockatrices have a chance to petrify on hit if they do that, and if they do that, a character can't act in combat. If the entire party is petrified, that's basically a wipe, and without a safety save, that could basically be a forfeit for the race, which is why we recommend saving at the beginning of this floor, so you can recover in case of something like that happening. Cleric used the Earth Rod and is now on the 4th basement floor. Here's Terra using that right now. Cleric is working his way on the 4th floor. Terra starting it. So once again, she's getting another group of these Pisco Demons, which are unrunnable. It's the only unrunnable here, but this is a bit of a dangerous situation here for Cleric, because 2 of his characters are now petrified, but he got away with running, and he picked up needles earlier, so he can recover from that. So he got a little fortunate with that encounter there. But now he's getting ambushed here with this undead group of wights and ghasts. Taralyn actually getting the exact same run, but she got an instant chance to run instead of getting ambushed. So that lets her get to the 5th floor just ahead of Cleric. So they're trading the lead. Fifth floor has the lowest encounter rate, and Cleric didn't get any encounters, so it gives him a slight edge here. But they're both going to take a safety save here, as the Lich can quickly and easily wipe the party if he opts to use his Blizzara attack on the opening round of this fight here. So we've got an actual speed sync going on here. and we'll see what happens here. If Lich happens to use Blazar, our characters don't have enough HP at this point to even survive that. Cleric just has to attack and try to do 1200 damage before Lich does that. Taralyn rolled just a little under that and got really unlucky because then Lich instantly used Blazar on the second round of combat. So that would have wiped her, so she just takes a soft reset to get it back into combat as quickly as possible. So with that, Cleric is definitely in the lead at this point. That was a really, really low rolls on Taralyn's side, so she's going to have to try this again and hope, and that will do it this time. We need to do 1200 damage to Lich in order to take him down, and it's possible for the only ones that do any significant damage are your melee characters since they have the barbarian swords equipped, but if they happen to low roll there, that can be very dangerous because that gives Lich an opportunity to use Blazar or to attack and paralyze one of your members because he can paralyze them on attack. Basically, things can go wrong if that fight goes more than one round, and even sometimes during the first round it can go very wrong, which is why we take a safety save here. So once we're all set here, a brief cutscene plays that you can see on Taralyn's side. This actually shows the opening of a bonus dungeon that was first introduced in the GBA version of the game, and it's also present in this version of the game called the Earth Gift Shrine. It's not actually visited or utilized in any percent run here, but it opens up as soon as you defeat Lich and then just plays a brief cutscene showing you the opening. So Cleric, once he's all set here, makes his way back to the boat and he's going to head now to Crescent Lake. As a reward for defeating Lich, one of the townsmen or one of the citizens there will reward us with the canoe key item, which is a travel method we need to be able to reach a couple other extra dungeons. So here we go. They're both working their way over to Crescent Lake here. They've docked here at the nearest area, and they just have to walk around this lake to be able to reach the town. No particularly dangerous enemies along this route here, and they can run from everything. So they're just trying to get away from everything. There's a slight divergence here, so here's where Cleric is going to duck into the item shop. He's going to sell some items for inventory management purposes, including the knight's armors, that the extra ones we picked up and took off of our characters for extra money. And then he's going to pick up some ethers here since he didn't pick them up earlier. And then he's going to head here to the armor shop first to pick up a pair of mithril gloves, and then to the weapon shop to pick up a mithril axe. And he's going to be glitching 3 items during this section here. He's going to be putting black garbs on 3 slots for 3 of his characters. He's also in the middle of this going to be glitching a piece of armor known as the black robe, and then glitching black garbs over it, so that puts it in his inventory. It'll let him cast Blazara in combat by using it as an item. And then finally he's going to be using the mithril gloves he picked up here to equip a weapon known as the Lust Dagger on both of his mages. Taralyn is going to be doing roughly the same thing. She's just not going to be doing the black robe menu here, so she's going to be putting Lust Daggers on her mages and black garbs on 3 out of the 4 characters. In order to facilitate this, you have to switch the order of your party members, because the character you glitch onto has to be adjacent to the character who could normally glitch the item that you want to glitch from. In this case, it's the mithril gloves. The only character in our party that can actually glitch it is the warrior. So if you want to glitch it into a Lust Dagger, the character that you glitch it onto has to be adjacent to the warrior in the party order. The white mage is adjacent when you start the menuing here, but the black mage is not, so you have to switch the order after doing the first glitch, or putting the first lust dagger on so that both characters can have it. And then after you're all set with that, you head over here to this NPC and pick up the canoe, and then head back to your ship so that you can head to the ice cave. Once we have the canoe, we can actually reach the ice cave because it requires a bit of canoeing over this shallow river section here. Once you visit the ice cave, we pick it up. We're going to make our way through this little maze over here to get to the ice cave and pick up a key item known as the Levistone, which will grant us access to the airship after we return it to a certain spot. Tara getting an encounter right before she would have gotten onto the river section here. So Cleric holding onto a slight lead here, but this is still very, very close at this point. Both runners should know exactly where they're going in this section. It's not particularly complicated to navigate this little river section. So Cleric is the first, almost the first, to reach the ice cave. And he's in. Right away he's going to take a safety save, as this is by far the most dangerous dungeon for a casual speedrun of this one. There are many enemies that can waste a lot of time or otherwise do a lot of damage to our party here. So it is not recommended in a race setting to just run straight in without saving first. Right away, Cleric gets a Pisco Demon group, which is going to slow him down. It's a common occurrence on this first floor. So that's already slowed him down and probably caught Taralyn up, but then she gets her own encounter, which is cockatrices and mummies, which can be dangerous. They can sleep our party or petrify our party members going on. So here's an ambush on Taralyn's side with the same group of enemies, which could be dangerous. This Dark Wizard, if it had happened to get an attack off, could cast Firaga, which can wipe our party because they don't have enough HP at this point to survive its attack. So they're both dodging some nasty encounters right now. Both getting a large group of undead here. This can be sometimes problematic to run from, but they both have ways to deal with it if they'd like to. It is a runnable encounter, though. So it's up to them if they want to try to run from it or if they want to just hedge their bets and try to get or use an item or a spell to get rid of them a little bit quicker. Tara is getting Dark Wizards here, which, again, could have been very dangerous if any of them had a chance to attack. In particular, we don't want to see a Dark Wizard ambush, as that would be very, very dangerous. Or even a Mind Flayer ambush on Taralyn's side, as they can use a full party paralyze attack on our characters and waste a lot of time. If all of our party members happen to be paralyzed at the same time, then we're basically just subject to the whims of the enemies that are hitting us, and that can waste a lot of time here. So you're trying not to waste as much time as possible here. You just want to keep moving, keep going as quickly as possible. So Cleric is the first to reach the Levistone over here, and he's going to take a quick safety save just in case. The easiest way to navigate, or the only way to navigate some of these, is to step on some cracked tiles and fall down to a lower floor so that you can reach certain areas. Now Cleric defended with everyone here as he's trying to set up a brief experience grind section for the mages. So we intentionally lowered our melee characters so that they were under roughly 70 HP, and then healed our mages so that we would not take the same damage on them, or they would not take the same damage or die from a Thundara attack that the Evil Eye happens to use. So the goal is basically to get into combat with Evil Eye, wait until he uses Thundara to kill off the melee characters, and then we grind to level 17 or 18 with our mages. Since the two melee characters are dead, the mages basically get double experience for each time they kill them. And each time we step on this tile, it forces an encounter here. So it will take usually 1 to 2 encounters for each level they want to gain. And depending on how many encounters you've fought up to this point, you probably need anywhere from 6 or 7 levels for our characters. So Taralyn's warrior is getting petrified over here, as she's having a little bit of a trouble with this group. She's opting to use a little bit of a hybrid strategy where She's issuing run commands with her characters and a magic command with her other character just in case to guarantee a one-round fight so long as the mage doesn't get petrified or slept or something to that nature. Cleric got an off-tile encounter there, which could be very dangerous. That's a little rare. Taralyn has to switch tactics now. She changed her equipment so that she doesn't have enough intelligence on her mages anymore. She put the Lust Dagger on, which gives agility instead, increasing her chances to act earlier in the order. So she can't use the Thundara she had earlier to be able to kill those groups of Pisco demons, so her only other option is to use the Judgment Staff, which will do enough damage. She's almost here to the grind. Looks like Cleric looks to be all set with the grind. So he's resurrected the Thief to try to give him a chance to try to get some more levels. In the next section, as we run to the Citadel of Trials, and Taralyn is setting up the grind here. It looks like it's perfect for her. Evil Eye used it right away, and our warrior was already petrified, so he's not subject to any of the damage there. Her Black Mage was a little low on health, though, but luckily survived the Thundara. Cleric is getting a group of Ice Gigas Winterwolf over here, which is unrunnable. He didn't want to see that. It slows him down a little bit. He could use melee attacks, or he could use the Staff. The Staff actually doesn't do enough damage to kill the Ice Gigas this early going, so attacking with his characters probably would have been a little bit faster. But Cleric's all set here, so he's just got to make his way out. And he's on the final floor of the Ice Cave, hoping to avoid any particularly dangerous encounters. He had a pretty good run out, other than that Ice Gigas Winterwolf fight. Terra continues to grind, meanwhile. Cleric, now that he has the Levistone, has made his way out and is just going to take it over to the desert where the airship is buried. Levistone will raise it from the desert and give him access to the airship as a form of travel. Biggest advantages of it is it moves 4 times faster than walking on the overworld, and there's no risk of enemy encounters while you're flying in it. The disadvantage is you can't strictly land next to every location you want to reach. In many cases, a lot of the tiles where you can land, or the locations where you can land to get to certain locations, are a bit restricted or kind of far away from where you're trying to go. So you'll see her often, or you'll see both of these players basically land at certain locations to try to reach their next destination. They'll often have to just park kind of far away and then walk, since there's no closer landing spot. Claire getting ambushed here, and this is a little unfortunate. This character should be capable of running from sea encounters at this point with all the gear we have. Taralyn's all set with the grind here, but she's just getting really annoying encounters on the way out, so this is slowing her down. Cleric has landed, he's entered the desert, so a brief cutscene's going to play here while the airship is raised. And Terra gets out of the ice cave, so now she's just going to make her way over. Cleric's maybe a minute ahead of her right now. Maybe not quite a minute, depending on the encounters that she gets. So, first destination, as soon as we pick up the airship, we're going to go to the Citadel of Trials and pick up the key item that will allow us to perform the class change. Cleric having a little trouble navigating and picking the right spot, but that is the right spot. That's the closest landing spot to be able to get the Citadel, so he's going to have to walk through this little desert section and then over forests and some marsh to reach it. Cleric is running into a sandworm here, which could be very dangerous if they happen to ambush you or if they get an attack off. So luckily for him, he got to run away. If they get off their earthquake attack, our characters don't have any protection against that right now. So it could easily wipe the whole party if you get really unlucky. Terra is picking up the airship. Cleric has made the whole walk over to the Citadel now. He has to talk to this NPC. in order to be able to teleport through this little throne chair here. If you don't talk to the NPC, that's not active and you can't do anything. And then he starts onto the second floor of the Citadel, which is a bit of a teleporter maze here. So every time you step on one of these, it ports you to a small room with an option to take 1 or 2 teleporters. If there's an option to take a teleporter, you want to take the rightmost or the bottommost one, as that will port you to the next section correctly. But if you take the wrong one, it's going to port you back to the very start of this section, which you don't want, because that just obviously wastes time. So Cleric's going to take the last one here, and he's all set with the second floor. So now he's on the final floor here. Just has to navigate his way through. He's getting an ambush from Medusas, which can petrify our character with their gaze attack. They're not usually very dangerous to us unless they happen to ambush in a large group. And then Cleric steps through this door. As soon as he steps into this encounter, he gets into a fight with Nightmares, which is a forced encounter. But luckily for him, it's runnable. And since he happened to get a preemptive, he's actually opting not to fight these. Many runners will actually opt to fight these Nightmares that they run into, as some of the gear we have might not make it easy to run from them with our current gear level. Terra's on the teleporter maze on the second floor. Cleric is just working his way through the third floor and is actually making pretty good time here, especially since he got away from both Nightmare encounters. But this could be very dangerous for him if all 3 gaze and hit. Luckily for him, the one that did gaze didn't even hit. So he should be okay here. But he detoured and picked up the gauntlets in the bottom corner, and when he was up in the Nightmare section, he actually detoured and picked up a healing staff up there. Both of them will be used for glitching later in the run. And Cleric's at the very end here, so now he's got to deal with these dragon zombies, which is a forced encounter that is also unrunnable right as you're trying to exit this section. Taralyn picking up the healing staff, and now she's actually going to perform a glitch since there's a slight variation in routing here. She's going to turn that into a piece of armor known as Lordly Robes, which gives an intelligence boost to her Black Mage. So the Black Mage should have enough magic power now to deal with groups such as the Minotaur zombies or the Dragon zombies that can be encountered here. Cleric will be glitching that shortly. He'll be doing that after the class change, though. Terra, meanwhile, also doesn't need the gauntlets that are here, so she can skip that. The gauntlets are needed for an equipment glitch later, and can also be used in combat to cast Thundara. Taralyn doesn't need that since she already has the Thundara spell. So she's going to opt to just melee attack this forced dragon zombie that she runs into. Now, I haven't been keeping track, but at this point, we're hoping that both of them have reached... Oh, this is dangerous for Cleric here. Oh, that is really lucky for him. That Earthquake missed on all 3 characters, because that could have been an absolute disaster. His last save was probably an Ice Cave, so that would have been a huge time loss if he did not happen to get lucky on that. Cleric has returned to his airship, and he's looking for the correct dragon cave to enter. This is the one he wants to get to Bahamut. Taralyn's making her way back to the ship, to her airship. Oh, he saved? Well, good for him. That's always recommended in our race, as it can be very dangerous if you don't happen to get that. Taralyn also getting a sandworm, so they're both getting just a little unlucky in terms of the encounters, but luckily for them, they're getting away from these encounters before they can do any serious damage to her. Cleric has taken the rat's tail and has presented it to Bahamut, who accepts it as a token of the party's courage and rewards them with a class change here. First thing Cleric's going to do here is perform an equipment glitch to put a Lordly Robes on the shield slot of the white mage, so that the white mage gets an intelligence boost, and that will help her deal more damage with the items that we have glitched in her equipment inventory. So they're both doing a little high five as they get through this section. So Taralyn's getting the class upgrade now. Cleric, meanwhile, has gotten out of the Dragon Caves and is going first for some errands to set up our access to the next couple areas. So he's going to stop here in the Desert Caravan and pick up a bottled ferry. And then in this particular version of the game, once you've purchased the bottled ferry from the Desert Caravan, an additional menu of items opens up that you can purchase. And the item we're going to pick up here is called the Giant's Tonic. We're going to pick up like either 2 or 11 from our characters. And it's an emergency measure for the final boss, Chaos. If you use a Giant's Tonic in combat, it raises the maximum HP of a character by 200 for the duration of the combat. It may not be necessary to use that depending on whether or not the Black Mage and the Ninja get enough experience or HP rolls while they're leveling up throughout the course of the run. But if they don't get enough, we can use that to help make up that difference. So Cleric, once he picks up the bottled ferry, we head straight to Gaia, and upon entering Gaia, the ferry is released instantly. In other versions of the game, you actually have to use the bottle as a key item in the menu to release it, but in this one, it's automatically released. Once it's released, we actually have to go visit it in the back of the town, next to the spring where it resides. And once you've done that, it rewards you with a key item called Oxyale. The Oxyale will allow us to breathe underwater and give us access to the Sunken Shrine dungeon that will be coming up in the near future. But before we do that, Cleric's all set here, but he's going to head first to Mount Gulg. And he's going to take, it looked like he was going to heal up before he got here, just in case. Mount Gulg is easily my favorite location in this one, as it has probably the lowest rate of encounters of any of the 4 main dungeons that we run into. So Cleric can step on either of these 2 tile types. He can step on the lava tiles, or he can step on the stone tiles. In general, he's going to be preferring the lava tiles, as you can't get encounters if you step on the lava tiles. But as a consequence, the lava tiles do damage your party member. All 4 of them, 1 HP for each tile they step on. So they will be stepping on as many lava tiles as they can to try to reduce the number of encounters they can be getting here. And that's right, I am definitely cursing these guys, because we're looking for some chaos in this run. So Cleric has made his way to the final floor. Taralyn has, I think, 2 or 3 floors left. And Cleric's going to opt to resurrect his characters now. Cleric should be all set here for the Marilith fight. This is a pretty easy fight for us at this point. It should be 2 attacks from our melee characters and some insurance attacks from Cleric's mages, just in case the warrior and the thief low roll. Hey, it's the whole point of the tournament. We've been looking for chaos this whole time. That's why we named the tournament Total Chaos. So, Cleric had no trouble with Marilith here. Taralyn is just behind him. Both of them resurrected or put all their characters back to full health. The only real danger point from Marilith is she might cast Fire on us, which just wastes a bunch of HP and necessitates some healing later on, but Taralyn not opting to attack with the mages just in case. Luckily for her, it didn't matter. She did enough damage with her 2 melee characters. So, quick question from Chad asking, what are these runners' PBs? To my knowledge, Taralyn has a 132 PB, which I believe is slightly better than Cleric's PB of 134. But other than that, they're pretty evenly matched. Once Cleric is all set here, we got a brief cutscene playing showing the opening of the second of the 4 bonus dungeons opening up here. The runners don't really care about that. It just is a little bit of a cutscene that has to play out for us. Cleric, meanwhile, now that he's all set and has enough experience on his characters, he's doing some shopping here. He stopped in Elfheim to pick up Haste, and now he's also picking up Healara and Teleport for the White Mage and Black Mage respectively here. Taralyn will also be picking up Lazara here for her Black Mage. Now, I did not see if Cleric got enough experience on his Thief. Cleric getting an unrunnable Hellhound Ogre Mage encounter over here, which is a little unfortunate for him, but he has the Black Robe to be able to deal with them. Terra's picking up the same spells over here. So they pick up these spells before they head to Onrek and the Sunken Shrine here. So Cleric, there's actually a closer landing spot than Cleric utilized. I think he's just more familiar with the NES version of the game as he also runs that. Terra may or may not also be aware of that, but we'll see. Yep, that's the closer landing spot. So Terra made up a little bit of time there just by landing a little bit closer. Or, I'm sorry, Terra made that up. Cleric, meanwhile, goes down here to talk to this little maiden who floats away. And then once we have the Oxio, we can actually board this barrel and make our way to the Sunken Shrine, which is the third of the 4 elemental dungeons we have to go through here. So Terra's not even like 20 seconds back right now. So they're both entering the Sunken Shrine here. Cleric starts on the 3rd floor, and we have 2 objectives here. The first is to go to the 5th floor and pick up the Rosetta Stone, an item we're going to need to be able to access the Flying Fortress and Mirage Tower later on in the run. And in the meantime, Cleric's going to be trying to avoid running into these groups of Sahagins or other unrunnable encounters. There's 3 types of enemy groups we're trying to avoid here, which is the Sahagin groups of princes and chiefs. There are ghost encounters, and we can also see water elementals here. All of them are unrunnable. The only exception is if you happen to see a water elemental with a water naga at the same time. That is actually a especially runnable encounter here. But both have what they need to be able to handle all 3 of these groups of enemies at this point. Cleric makes his way up to the 5th floor, has no encounters on that floor, and picks up the Rosetta Stone after just walking through this little section here. And now that we have teleport, this is going to be considerably quicker than running back and forth to get in and out of dungeons. So using teleport warps you back to the end of the previous floor that you were on. Taralyn getting an unrunnable group or ghost combination here. So Cleric warps back to the starting floor, and now he's going to head in the other direction to make his way to the other objective, Kraken, at the very bottom. Terra getting an unrunnable group here, Princes and Chiefs, but she has Thundara. Cleric will be using Gauntlets instead. They both cast the same spell, Thundara, to deal with that group of enemies. The Sharks are perfectly runnable, so in general you won't see them fight anything that isn't a forced unrunnable encounter. Sea Scorpions are not really any danger to us. Taralyn gets the Rosetta Stone here, and she's going to warp back the same thing. Cleric's going to deal with these ghosts by using the Mage's Staff, which casts Fyra. If Terra runs into that, she's going to be using Fyra, the spell itself. Now this could be a little dangerous for Terra, because I'm not sure if she has enough intelligence to be able to kill water elementals with Blazara here. Looks like she does, which is good. That might have been a problematic group for Cleric, but it looks like it wasn't a problem for her. At the high end, this is pretty much all encounters at this point. So you can play as well as you want to, but how quickly you go is dictated by how many encounters you get, what kinds of encounters you get, and how quickly you can make decisions to be able to deal with these groups of enemies. So Cleric stops over here. Ooh, Taralyn actually took a slight change. They're both picked up a light axe, and they're going to perform a glitch at this point, but they picked them up on different floors. Taralyn actually picked it up on the 4th floor on the way back from the Rosetta Stone, and Cleric's here on the 2nd last floor before Kraken picking this up. So they're going to be turning this light axe into a piece of armor known as the Survival Vest, which grants even more agility and on our characters. So that will give them the maximum power of running away from characters and the greatest chance to act earlier in combat. They're going to put 3 or 4 copies of that on each of their characters. And on the mage, they're going to put 2 Lordly Robes and 2 Survival Vests to give her to stack agility and intelligence on her so that she can deal with enemies using the gauntlets, the Mage's Staff, and the Black Robe. There is no step count. There is no step count or encounter manipulation in this version of the game at present. So Taralyn actually opted to pick that up on the 4th floor. It's a relatively new, recently discovered strategy, as it's actually a couple tiles less of movement to be able to pick it up on that floor, since it does actually appear in 2 different chests on this dungeon here. But most runners will pick it up on the 2nd floor where Cleric picked it up. Cleric, meanwhile, has made his way over to Kraken here. And in contrast to many other versions of the game, Kraken is a complete pushover in this fight. He does not do any serious damage with the equipment we have on here, and his most dangerous AoE attack is that Ink attack, which doesn't do anything against us. And he only has 1800 HP, which our characters are more than capable of one rounding. Taralyn's on at the start of Kraken's floor here. She's only a minute or so behind, which is still something she can easily make up given the upcoming dungeons. So no lead. Cleric's lead is not safe at this point. It's better to be ahead, but because it gives him more of a buffer to be able to deal with encounters and enemies. But we'll see if his lead holds based on the RNG both players are getting. So Cleric's all set here in Sunken Shrine. He warps out on this little tile in the back. Yeah, the Chaos Shrine is the longest dungeon and can definitely decide this race, especially given how close these guys are right now. Cleric is actually getting an unrunnable here. Ice Geek is Winterwolf. You can get them in this little section of the overworld. It probably would have been faster for him to use melee attacks, but if he's going with what he knows, which is that the Judgment Staff will do enough to kill them now. His next destination, and Taralyn's next destination, will be the Waterfall Cavern, which is up this little narrow river here. So it's a 1-floor little mini dungeon with many twists and turns here, and many of these NPC bats that are getting in the way. They're kind of a jerk. They are often in the way in these, especially in these early areas. It's a bit of a maze, but the runners know where they're going for the most part. In the bottom left corner of here is a treasure room, and inside that is an NPC that has a key item we need, as well as there's a treasure in there that we also want to pick up for glitching. So, but this is also a very high encounter area, so you're going to see them more than likely get a lot of encounters here every 10 to 15 steps. one of my least favorite dungeons in this particular run here. Cleric working his way through. The only enemy we're particularly hoping not to see are green dragons, which are unrunnable here. Alright, so Cleric makes his way in here. As soon as he steps on this tile, this is a forced encounter tile, and generally features 9 enemies. This Cockatrice Pyrolisk, if the Pyrolisks use their gaze attack, it could kill some of his party members, but it's not a particularly dangerous encounter otherwise. It's a little unfortunate for him that it was an ambush, as that wastes some time. Cleric picks up a ribbon, which is what we were picking up, and then he talks to the robot to pick up the warp cube, which is the first of the 2 key items we need to reach the next dungeon, the Flying Fortress. So a brief cutscene plays here after you pick it up from him. And now Cleric's going to be doing a little glitch with the ribbon we picked up. He's going to be turning it into a Gigantax for the warrior, and then putting his weapon back on, and then using the Gigantax actually to glitch multiple copies of the ribbon. It's the only instance where we're basically picking up an item to turn it into the item that lets us turn it into more of the original item that we picked up. Usually when we pick up an item, we're just glitching, we're just turning it into the other item that we need. So this is the only such instance where we do it the other way around. A 2-step glitching process. So Cleric picked it up and turned it into a ribbon and put it on his 2 melee characters, so they each have a ribbon, which reduces their chance to get status effects and reduces elemental damage by half. So his melee characters are pretty well protected at this point. Tara should be doing roughly the same thing. She might be doing a slightly different menu coming up here, depending on how she wants to set this up. Cleric, meanwhile, now that he's got the Rosetta Stone, he's going to head here to Melman and talk to this NPC in the back of the town, Dr. Un, who can translate it for us. So once we have this, we can learn the Lufenian language and visit the town of Lufenia and actually converse with the NPCs there. If you go over there without translating it, the NPCs will basically just speak gibberish, which doesn't do us any good and can waste a lot of time, because unless you can talk Lufenian, you can't pick up the next key item we need from the NPC there. So we have to detour there to go translate the language, and then head over to Lufenia before as the next step there. So Taralyn's all set there in the waterfall, and she's warped out. And Cleric, meanwhile, has landed as close as he can in Lufenia, and now has to begin a long walk to get down there. Really hoping not to see Minotaur zombies on this walk, as that's an unrunnable encounter. They can be encountered by themselves or with troll enemies. And either combination is unrunnable at this point. Running into them basically just wastes time, because you're forced to kill them. Taralyn's having a little trouble landing the ship here, but she's got it into Melman. She's going to talk to Dr. Un in the back. Cleric, in the meantime, is going to be working his way over here to go pick up the next key item we need, the second key item we need to be able to reach the Flying Fortress, the Chime. So once we have the Chime, we can enter the Mirage Tower. Once you get to the end of the Mirage Tower, you need to use the Warp Cube to be able to get up to the Flying Fortress. So it's basically a 2-stage dungeon. Each stage has a key item we need to enter, and once we have both, we can go through the whole thing in one go. So Cleric, now that he has it, has to walk out and get back to his airship, which is another walk back. Still hasn't seen any Minotaur zombies now, so he's in pretty good shape so far. Taralyn begins the walk here. There's a Minotaur zombie for GreenCleric. Luckily for him, it's only one, so we can just quickly issue a melee attack with one of his characters to get rid of it. Here we got a group of 4 on Terra's side. The easiest way to deal with that is Fyra. Cleric would use Mage's Staff which would also cast the same spell, basically. I don't have to summon them. They would show up regardless. They are very, very common in this section, so they're going to show up whether or not I say anything or not. But yes, I am trying. So Cleric is into the Mirage Tower. This is 3 floors here. He's got to work his way. The first floor is really, really short as you just walk into the door and then walk out the stairs right next door. And then he's on the second floor now. This is the longest of the 3 floors. The only enemy he's looking to avoid here is blue dragons, which are unrunnable. Taralyn's having a little trouble here because many of the passages in Lufenia here are a little narrow, and if the NPCs get in the way, they can just block you, and then you just have to kind of push them out of the way. Alright, so Cleric is all set with the second floor, and now he's into the third and final floor. As soon as he steps into this room, he will get a forced encounter with a blue dragon. Just needs to take care of that and then step onto the center tile to get to the flying fortress. Tara's making her way back on the walk from Lufenia here. And Cleric begins the flying fortress here, so this is 5 additional floors. We don't have to detour for anything. We don't need any items or anything else from here, so we just make our way straight to Tiamat on the 5th floor. The only enemies we're looking to avoid here are Evil Eyes, the same ones as we ran into in Ice Cave, which are unrunnable here. Cleric getting one. Tara looks to have had a pretty good walk overall. And she lands right next door and starts making her way up to Mirage Tower. So Tara's about 5 floors back, I think, right now. She doesn't want to see this ambush from these vampires here. While they, unlike the enemy we ran into earlier, these ones are runnable, but this gaze attack can just waste a bunch of time. So Cleric is on the 4th floor here now. This is actually, if you happen to walk in any direction, this floor is actually endless. But it's actually only a 4x4 grid, so basically if you walk either up or down 2 corridors, and then left or right 2 corridors, you'll find the exit teleporter to the next floor. But you can basically walk in one direction endlessly if you want, and it will repeat after 4 corridors. Cleric taking a quick safety save just in case of a Warmech here. We're hoping to see a Warmech here, as this is the only floor of the game we can see in. Didn't see him on the way into the Kraken fight. Now, Cleric, I don't know if he healed or not here. We'll have to see what happens here with Cleric. He might be a little vulnerable if Tiamat uses some attacks, but we'll see. No, Cleric had no problem with that. Tiamat did not opt to use any AoE attacks here, so Cleric makes quick work of him. I'm sorry, her. Yeah, Tara's having significantly worse RNG at this point, and it's costing her a bunch of time, which is unfortunate because there's very little she can do about that. It's just kind of a part of this run. RNG plays a very large factor in this run compared to many of the tournaments you might see on Speed Gaming or the other games that you might see here. RNG is a significant factor and can pretty strictly decide a run if one player gets significantly worse RNG. With that said, it tends to even out sometimes, but there's nothing that players can do. They just have to deal with whatever they're given at this point. Tara gets through the blue dragon, no problem, so now she's going to start Flying Fortress here. No Warmech for GreenCleric here, so that's a bit of a sad thing for him. but he probably would not have fought it even if he had run into it. So Cleric's all set, and he's going to head to the final dungeon now that he's finished all 4 of the elemental dungeons to go confront Chaos at the very end. Terra's going to do her best to try to catch up. So while she's behind at this point, and is almost the whole dungeon of Flying Fortress behind, it is not impossible for her to catch up from this point on. Ambushes like this are not helping, though, because she doesn't want to see enemies like Earth Medusas that have these long casting animations. So Cleric returns here to Chaos Shrine, the very first mini-dungeon we went into. The brief cutscene plays showing us the opening of the PSP exclusive bonus dungeon when you walk in here. The entrance of which is at the very, very back of the of this first floor here. But again, we're not going to see it this run because there's no benefit here in an any % run. So Cleric starts the final dungeon here and takes a quick safety save, which is a very wise idea. There's many, many unrunnable enemies and white dragons and things of that nature that can do a lot of damage to our party. Cleric's off to a good start here. If you're in the lead, this is what you want to see. This is what you want to see on Cleric's side, is just quickly runnable encounters. You don't want to see any dangerous, nasty ones like green dragons at this point, which are unrunnable and slow you down. Cleric makes his way quickly to Death Eye, and then steps over here to play the lute, which will remove this little barrier that's in front of us and let him begin the final descent. Terra, meanwhile, is on the final floor here. She may get a Warmech on this floor while she's approaching Tiamat. Doesn't look like she got it before, so she may have a chance to get it afterwards. She's healing up just in case. That'll let her handle Tiamat if Tiamat uses any AoE attacks. So Cleric, meanwhile, is getting dragon zombies, which are unrunnable over here. Yeah, we're still hoping for Warmech over here. Terra's got a shot on the little walkout after Tiamat over here. But otherwise, we may not see him today, which is a little unfortunate. Cleric is getting Ice Gigas Winterwolf over here, which he's run into a few other times. This is a pretty large group, though. He's going to have to use a Judgment Staff to take care of this one, as Fire doesn't do enough with the equipment setup that the White Mage has at this point. Cleric getting even more unrunnables here with the dragon zombies. So he's getting slowed down by these unrunnable encounters here on this floor. He gets another encounter. It's another Ice Gigas Winterwolf, which is really slowing him down now. Cleric just wants off of this floor right now. He's only a handful of steps away. And he's off of it, and now he's got to get through this floor, which tends to feature purple worms, which are unrunnable, and ice and white dragons, which can be very dangerous if you fail to run from them or they ambush you. No Warmech for Terra, so we're not going to see a Warmech today. That's unfortunate. We'll just keep our eyes peeled for the next race, because there's going to be 2 more races tomorrow on Speed Gaming, so 2 more opportunities tomorrow to see him. Cleric is now on the first of the refight floors, so we're going to have to refight each of the 4 elemental fiends we defeated earlier. And these floors feature many of the enemies that would normally have been found in their original dungeon here. So the first one is the Lich floor. So Cleric's just got to make his way around here, get over to Lich, and hopefully get through that without dying. Oh, Cleric heals up before Lich, and also takes a safety save. This is just in case Lich happens to use his flare attack, which can almost wipe our party at this point of the run. And he's also opting to haste the Thief to try to see if he can make this a one-round fight. And I don't think that's enough damage. So no, it's going to be a two-round fight here. Lucky for him, Flare did not get a chance to get cast. His Flare will usually kill a Black Mage and a Thief at this point, and may also kill a White Mage if she's got low HP. Warmac has been seen a few times in this tournament. I believe it's been at least 2 times that he's been seen so far, and one other runner also got him in an additional race that he did. Warmac himself does not actually lose a lot of time, because in many cases he's runnable, and it's often a preemptive fight. So you don't have to fight him, we just like to see him because it's a rare encounter here. If you happen to fight him, it just takes probably 2 rounds of combat to take him down. And he gives a lot of experience, so there's a lot of post-combat messages that you have to scroll through as you're going to gain some experience and some levels from doing that. So it might cost you a little bit of time to actually fight him, but he is worth a lot of experience, and that can give our characters a chance to get some additional HP. So I'm actually starting to pay attention here to Cleric's Black Mage and Thief max HP totals, as they're going to factor into the final fight as we approach him here. So his Thief has 230, which is a little bit low. His Black Mage is 245, which is actually pretty good. Ideally, you probably want about close to 300 for the Thief, and probably at least 250 for a Black Mage to be able to survive Chaos' attacks. If you reach those totals, you don't necessarily need to use a tonic during the final fight to be able to make up the difference. So Tara begins her descent now that she's through the first section with Death Eye. Cleric, meanwhile, is on Kraken's floor, which is the 3rd of the floor, refight floors. But Cleric did not heal, so this could be a little dangerous for him. Yeah, that might be a little dangerous. He gets through it, though. Purple Word for Taralyn, which is unrunnable here. Yeah, Taralyn's Thief has over 300, so he's actually in pretty good shape for the final fight. But her Black Mage is kind of low, around 180 or so. So she's probably not in immediate danger. She would be in particular danger if she was down closer to like 160 or so. But she's still going to need a boost to be able to survive Chaos's AoE attacks. So they're both looking right now like they have to probably tonic at least one of their characters to survive Chaos successfully. Cleric makes it through Tiamat with no real issue. Tara tries to run here from a group of Earth Elementals, and that's unfortunate because that's an unrunnable group. So that just wastes a combat round and hurts her. Cleric is basically all set with encounters now. He's reached the final floor. There's no more encounters on this floor other than the final boss. So he's going to do a quick setup on his characters. He's going to put he already put a golden staff on his White Mage, and he's going to put a ribbon on her, and then take the survival vest off to lower her agility so that she acts consistently as the last person in each combat round. So she'll be on healing duty for the fight, and she'll be acting last after Chaos does his attack, so we can consistently plan when she heals and react to his attacks. And then the other setup is to put a Barbarian Sword on the Black Mage and a ribbon on the Black Mage so that they can reduce their damage, and after that they just heal up and ether up everybody. Hopefully take a safety save, just in case Chaos trolls. Tara's making her way through Merilith's floor now. So this is going to be very tough for Taralyn to catch up if Cleric gets at least an okay pattern to start with on Chaos. So she's running out of time to be able to catch up at this point. It's going to require a wipe or two for her to be able to catch up. So Cleric's strategy is going to tonic the Thief, or he's going to tonic the Black Mage. He's actually going to tonic both characters. He probably could have gotten away without doing it on the Black Mage, but he's not going to take a risk here. The Black Mage will be hasting the Ninja, the Warrior, and the Black Mage in sequence. After this first round, using tonics on characters, the Warrior and Thief will be attacking with their Barbarian swords, and the White Mage will be on healing duty for the entire fight. So this will take probably 6 or 7 rounds, depending on how it's going right here. These are the attacks we're trying to avoid here: are Blaze, Tsunami, and Cyclone, as they have long animations and do lots of damage. And they also have, they just have very long animations. Chaos can also use physical attacks. He can use some spells like Blizzara. So he has a wide range of attacks here. Ideally, you want to see him use physical attacks, as they take the least amount of time and are usually and only hit one character. Cleric has all 3 characters hasted at this point, so he's pretty much in hold X to win mode. Tara's doing her best, but I don't think she's going to be able to catch up at this point. She's gotten unrunnable water elementals on Kraken's floor here. So this is the 4th round of combat on Cleric's side. It will probably be another 1 or 2 rounds, maybe 3 rounds if he low roll on his damage rolls. But he's not in any real danger here. The only real risk for Cleric at this point is a critical hit on the White Mage, as she's actually kind of low on her max HP. But barring that, Cleric's in great shape to finish this out. And actually, that is, I believe, GG for Cleric. And if I'm not mistaken, that is a PB. So we'll check in with him in a second. We'll see what Tara's doing. Looks like she's just finished Kraken and is working her way up to Tiamat. So Taralyn's working her way through Tiamat. Now she hastes up the Thief, trying to make this a 2-round fight. Yeah, congratulations to GreenCleric. That just means Cleric will advance in the winner's bracket. That will knock Tara down to the lower bracket, but neither runner is eliminated here. So Tara's doing her final setup here for the equipment. Instead of using a golden staff on her White Mage, she'll be using the Sage's staff that she made much earlier in the run, as it's only a minor difference in intelligence between the 2 of them. So Tara's all set here. Now she's just going to take a quick safety save ahead of Chaos. Yeah, I would say of the 2 of these runners, Tara definitely seemed to get the worst RNG between the 2 of them. But they both made mistakes today. So, I mean, they both tried to run, I believe, from some unrunnable encounters, which is only natural over the course of this. You're going to get at least 180 random encounters, usually in a typical any % run, and that's assuming a pretty quick run. So longer runs obviously generally tend to have more encounters. You could see anywhere between probably well over 200 encounters and some 200 random encounters. We're not even counting the forced encounters. So Tara opts to tonic the Black Mage only. And it sounds like we have Cleric joining us.
Yep, I'm here.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
How did you feel about that run overall?
I wasn't too happy about that first part. It's kind of like the first run there where, what was it, like 10, 11 encounters before Garland? I was thinking, okay, this is how it's going to be tonight. I think it actually turned around. Actually, going to Lich wasn't too bad, and from there, the run kind of evened out. I think it was alright. I mean, a little bit of good, bad RNG, but in the end, I mean, tried to work on my execution a little bit, and, you know, I think the Chaos fight at the end helped a lot, though, to get the PB.
Tara is having some very bad luck here as she got Blaze, Tsunami, Cyclone in sequence, which does a lot of AoE damage.
Oh, jeez.
So she's not out of this at this point. If she just holds X to win, she's probably okay. It just might take an extra round or two.
Yeah, shouldn't be. She's set up fine, so it should just be, might just take a little longer, but should be fine.
Yeah, her Thief is down right now. But it's not, this is not something she can't deal with. And yeah, she's having a rough go tonight. It definitely seemed between the two of you that you had the better RNG of the two of the runners.
So where did it start, I don't want to say going wrong for Tara, but where did, I guess, I start to pull away, or?
I want to say Sunken? I believe it was like
actually, Sunken really wasn't that bad. Sunken was actually pretty good for me on that end.
Yeah, I think she was starting to get more encounters there, and it was starting to pile up for her. So she's been doing her best for the most part. She's made a couple little mistakes, like I saw her try to run from a group of Earth Elementals on the Chaos Shrine floor.
Well, I think all of us were all good for one of those during each run. I think, how many... I'm pretty sick of Ice Aegises and Winter Wolves. I'm sick of those. That's like, what? I think I had 3 or 4 of those even before Chaos Shrines, so... Oof.
It looks like Tara has finished. In spite of Cass's best attempts to derail her day, she has prevailed. Unfortunately, it just cost her a bunch of time, and that put her down into second place in this race. So, we'll see if she wants to join us in a minute.
No shame in that. I mean, with this game, I mean, and some of the people that have been watching these races might know, in this game, you know, our RNG is not, oh, it'll cost you 30 seconds, it'll cost you a minute. RNG can be brutal in this game, and one of the only ways that you can try to at least make up the time or at least minimize the impact is just to think fast, just to see, okay, what encounter do I have? What do I do in this encounter situation? That's pretty much the only thing that you can do in most cases, but no, it's, I mean, Tara's had like, so far in this tournament, she's done really well, and she's been improving race by race as well.
Yeah, many of the racers that are still in the tournament at this point have been improving. Tara is among them, and I believe her last race was a PB. Speaking of that, was this a PB for you?
Yes, and the only reason it was a PB was, I think, well, it was pretty much because going in, I think by when I got the Rod, it was 2.5 minutes behind PB. Then I made up most of the time on the going to Lich, and then just kind of chipped away at it from there. Chaos fight helped with that, though. I just had, what, it was 1 Blaze, and the rest was physicals.
So yeah, that's a very fortunate pattern there that can save quite a lot of time compared to some of the things he can do. So
absolutely.
Taralyn has declined the interview for tonight, but perhaps she'll want to interview in the future. I know she's definitely interviewed in the past, especially after her previous PB. She was more than happy to interview for that one.
Oh, understood. If Taralyn, if you're listening, GG tonight. You're still in it. You still got a chance, but you know, glad. You know, wishing you all the best going forward.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough road from the lower bracket, but at no point is anyone incapable of winning this tournament from that point.
It's going to be a tough road for me next match, though.
Yeah, there's no easy matches from this point forward, but there's also plenty of RNG that the game can give you to try to give you an opportunity to win. So we'll have to see what's going on here. It looks like... So that advances you in the bracket. I forget who you're up against next now.
Kibeta.
Oh, that one of our top seeds, Kibetha. So she's going to be a tough draw.
Oh, yeah.
So let's see. Do I have access to... I'll take a quick look at the bracket here.
Yeah, because I think this is... We have... After tonight, we have, I believe, just 2 more round 1 races to go, and they're both tomorrow.
Yeah, 2 more round 1 races, and that'll put everyone... I'll put 8 people firmly in the upper bracket and 8 people firmly in the lower bracket. So with the loss tonight, that'll put Tara down to face Shinbreaker in our next match. So I think they're both... Yeah, I think they're both pretty evenly matched as well. So that should be a pretty good race to check out. We'll have to see when everybody schedules their race, because we're just waiting on the results of tomorrow's matches, and then people will start scheduling for the next round. So, with that said, we're going to start wrapping it up here. I would just like to take a quick moment to thank Fiesel and the crew of Speed Gaming for hosting our tournament this evening, and for the matches tomorrow, which will also be on Speed Gaming. The viewers here tonight for sticking with us. I know there were some Zelda randomizer that was going on at the same time, so I'm curious to check that out if that's still going myself. Do you have anything you want to shout out while you're here, Cleric?
Not really. Thanks to everybody for showing up tonight. I know there's been a lot going on, St. Patrick's Day today and everything, but for everyone who showed up, I hope we gave you a good race tonight. Hope you enjoyed yourselves, and like Porskype said, we got plenty more action coming tomorrow. We have 2 races, I think, 4 p.m. and 9 p.m. Eastern, I think?
Yep, that's their current schedule things. I will be participating in the 9 p.m. race tomorrow night. So I'm excited. I'm a little nervous. I mean, I am probably one of the higher seeds in this tournament, but I know that plenty of RNG can happen, and that worries me a little bit.
Well, so. It worries all of us, you know that, but... No, but again, good luck for tomorrow night.
Thank you. And I mean, while our racers are suffering with anxiety from the RNG that can happen, we're just hoping it excites all you guys, the viewers here, with all the unpredictability. So with that said, I think we're all set here, and we'll say good night here. So thanks again, everybody, for watching. Please stay tuned for tomorrow's matches, and all right, we'll see you then.
All right, night.
Good night.